Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Corrine. I hope you're all having a wonderful day at the end of February here. Today, we're going to be creating something similar to this card. This is using Lavinia stamps. We're going to create the background. I just like to show this because it's so sparkly and so shimmery. So what I'm going to show you how to do today is how to create your own simple background. In a couple days, I'm going to have another one where it's like building on the background and how to create getting even more complicated or more not complicated, but in depth. So today I'm going to show you again just this very simple background. I remember I spent many years looking at the Lavinia stamps and things like that in scrapbooking stores and just being really awed at how beautiful they were and feeling like I could never do anything like this. And then I watched some videos and on YouTube, and I highly recommend going to Lavinia stamps and searching them on YouTube or whatever if you're at all interested in this kind of technique or genre or whatever, because the skills that you'll learn from this are transferable to any other kind of creating a background, any other kind of stamping, things like that. It's not just for a fairy world. However, if you are interested in fairy worlds, I really recommend, because I always felt I could never create anything this beautiful or that beautiful too. So what was the point in, basically wasting my money? And then I watched these videos and turns out it's actually really, it's a really easy process. There's lots of different ways to do it, lots of individual things to show your own personal artistry and creativity. And it's a really great way to make that happen. And so you get all these beautiful stamps that help give you the foundation for it. And then you can take it in whatever direction you want. So today we're going to start with, so this is one that I made, and there's a couple others. They're still in their sleeves here, but it's another one. This one was a background that I had. So it's just simple. It's one simple stamp there. Really, really, really nice. This is a background that I did creating, or that I created using pigment powders, actually. So if you saw my last video that should be coming up right away here, where I did the embossing, emboss resist with pigment powders, same thing, sprinkle them on, spray them, and then I added my stamps and everything. So that's one of them. And then here's another one. Sorry about the shine there, guys. This one, I love this one because to me, it looks like the Aurora Borealis. I just love it. It's so cute. So yeah, and again, that's just pigment powders, just sprayed or tapped on and then sprayed with water to give it that multi-dimensional, multi-layered look. And then I did my stamping and other inking and everything on top of them. So today we're going to start I was going to say simply, but we're going to start with a white piece of paper. This is 80-pound smooth cardstock. I believe this is accent opaque. 80 pound, it's like a cover cardstock. It's nice and smooth, makes it really easy for blending. I've got a couple of blending brushes, and I am going to be using the Element inks. So usually when I start on a background, I like to start with a dye-based ink, because if I want to add any kind of texture or spray or anything like that, I can. So I'm going to start with the background. You don't always have to start with the background. Often I'll start with my stamping first. But in order to know where my focal and everything is going to be, I'm going to start with my background. So I'm just going to take, this is Sundance. So this is their yellow color. And I'm very simply, put my brush in there. I'm going to dab it off into the lid of my ink pad here, because if I choose to watercolor or anything, I can just add a little bit of water in there, and then I'm good to go. I'm not wasting all that ink by having it on my paper here. No. I'm not sure where that sprig of, it didn't look like tinsel or something. Oh. Okay. And I'm just going to start by adding some color onto my paper here. And because I want to have, I'm planning on doing a silhouette stamp, so I am going to be doing a fairy. It's not the same fairy that I showed you, but I am going to be using a fairy again. I'm just going to continue to build this up. I want to be able to have a focal point in the center. So I am going to start lighter and then work to darker, which is often easier. So when I'm tapping off, because I'm blending, I'm tapping off on into the top, the lid of my ink pad here, just to make sure that I'm not getting like a heavy saturation or a harsh mark or anything like that. So I'm pretty happy with how that's come out there. So the further that I bring it out, when I add my other colors, they'll just mix and blend a little bit and give me other shades, which I kind of like. So I'm going to pull out, my second color here is going to be the new blue atoll, or atoll, or atoll. I'm really not sure how to pronounce that, but we're going to go with blue atoll. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to put ink up my brush, and then I'm going to dab it off. And now I'm going to come in from the sides here. Oftentimes when you're making a background, it's a really good idea to decide, is this going to be morning? Is it twilight? Is it dusk? Is it nighttime? Yeah, it's a good idea to have that and then use your colors appropriately that way. I think I'm going to kind of go for, I don't want it to be sunrise. It's kind of like, before things start getting all the pink and the blue, the pinks and the reds and all of that, I'm wanting a little bit of sun without having, without having those colors. I want it to be more blues and greens. So it's not quite morning yet. Still having some light coming up the horizon. And as I bring my blue around onto my yellow, you can see where it's starting to form this really pretty tealy green color. But if I wanted to have this be slightly deeper or darker, I could certainly do purples and pinks with an orange. I could do nighttime, make it nice and dark. I'm trying to turn my page here. Really, any colors, whatever your favorite colors are that you like to work with, you can certainly use those. I'll bring a nice little bit more lighter blue in this area. It's more saturation here. Okay. And now I'm going to be using the new dark denim. So this is a darker blue. I'll show you here on my paper. Quite a bit of a darker blue. So this one I want to bring around the edges. I'm still going to be bringing it in on my paper, but I'm going to be starting around the edges here. Now, if you were using a blender brush, like a blender sponge brush, you would get a much more saturated ink. Because I'm using the blender brushes like this, I get a really nice soft fade. Personally for me, I just find this simpler. I get a much nicer blend, which is what I like. If I want, like I said, if I want a much more in-depth or saturated color, I use my blending sponges instead. This just gives a really nice soft fade, and I can continue to come from my ink pad into the brush and build up more color. But it's a gradual buildup versus when I use the sponges, there's a lot of ink on that. Even when I dab them off, there's a lot of ink on them. And it ends up, it basically goes onto your paper. That's what you want. So at this stage, there's going to be so many things that we're adding to our paper and to our card front here that you can see here. I'm not sure if you can see this. I got a few little marks where I got a little carried away. I didn't dab it off or didn't rub it in enough. You can sort of see it looks, oops, sorry. Let me bring that into focus there. There we go. Where it gets a little speckly. That's okay. There's so many things that we're going to be adding on top of here. This is not the point to say, oh, that's it. I can't possibly do this. We're going to keep adding. There's so many more things and so many ways to correct what may be. I don't know that that's a mistake yet. So it's way too early in the process to declare, oh my God, I ruined my pen. Okay. I think I like that. Yeah, that works good for me. So that's a great place to finish off for the background. So that's the background. Now what I am going to do though is I'm going to add a little bit of spray. This spray that I have has, it's just plain water, and I've added Perfect Pearls into it, just the white color of the Perfect Pearls. This ink, the Elements by Lavinia that I was using, so these inks, they are water reactive, much like a distress ink is. So these are a dye-based ink that is water reactive. So it should, what it will do is it will create like a faux bleaching technique. Okay, so I'm going to, just from up high here. There we go. Okay, put that away. So this is just going to give me a little bit of technique. I'm just going to grab a tissue to blot that up so you can see where it's starting to lift some of the color. So instead of adding splatter, I'm creating my own by just bleaching or faux bleaching some of my paper here. So this is going to be our background so far. You can see where the ink was bleached a little bit just by the water. And it will have just a slight little bit of sheen in all of those little bleach spots there because I used the water that I had that had, what do you call it, Perfect Pearls in it. Okay, so now the stamp that I'm going to use today is Luna, the tree goddess. And whenever you've got stamps, particularly the Lavinia stamps, you want to make sure that you're keeping your acetates, okay? Because before you go and stamp anything, you can try your acetate to see how it looks. Am I happy with that? Do I like where that's going? Right, so I can try that without actually putting your stamp, because you may not have done the best job cleaning your stamp, but your acetate is usually pretty clean. So do that. If I do that there, doesn't leave me a lot of room to add a lot of other branches, but it does highlight her really nicely in the yellow. So I think I'm going to have her be in this area this way. So I'm going to change the orientation of what I had intended on my card. I'm going to have the little bit more darker at the top there. So this is my stamp. And let me see, is she going to fit on this block? Yes, okay. So I'm putting her on my block. And it's a little kitty corner there, but I'm going to ink up in VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. So this is the black ink. When you're using silhouette stamps, pigment ink is your best bet, particularly this one because it has a glycerin. So pigment inks are slow drying ink. They usually have some sort of a property or something in them that allows them to stay wet, but it also clings to your stamp much better. So you get a phenomenally crisp image, which you need when you're talking these kinds of stamps, especially if you're not using a stamp platform, which I'm not today. I'm just going to wing it. So if you can see here, I can check out my stamp. You can see how shiny it is. I've gotten ink everywhere that I needed it to be. Okay, so now I'm going to pay attention to where my branch is. That is going to come off just slightly off of my paper. And I want to make sure that I've got her in the area I was looking at. And I'm going to press down. Okay. Now I'm going to hold this here. We want to give time for the ink to transfer. Because it's a pigment ink, it's not going to soak in. It's not going to be absorbed into our paper. It's going to sit on top. So we have to give it time for the friction of, even though we're not moving it around, there is still some friction as from our paper to our stamp as we're holding it here. So we need to give it time for it to transfer from our stamp onto our paper. So we're just going to take our time, grab a baby wipe here so that I can wipe off my stamp when I'm done. Just give it a nice little press. You don't want to be doing chest compressions. It will blow out any of the lines on there. So if you're doing chest compression, you're pushing too hard, all of the fine lines in her wings will compress, they'll push down, and the silicone will spread. As you push it down, it has to go someplace, so it'll end up spreading instead. So you don't get these nice fine lines. Okay. And we're going to lift, and there we go. The other reason why you want to give it a little bit of time is because your cardstock, we have added, even though it doesn't look like we have added quite a bit of ink to our paper here. So it needs time to sit on top and absorb. So I'm just going to add my stamp here back to my acetate and put that to the side. Now, you can see here on my image, now, because I didn't use a stamp platform, this is going to be what it's going to have to be. But you can see where there's a couple of places where there's these orbs from when I did the splatter effect, right? Now, if I really wanted to, I could take my black Sharpie and I could dab it. You want to dab? Let's see, where's my black Sharpie? Here's my black Sharpie. So I'm going to take my black Sharpie, and you don't want to color in lines like this because you'll be able to see it. But if you take this and you dab it, this blends in to your ink much better. So there's a few spaces here. I might have had some dust on my stamp, but I think I want to leave the bleach spots here because they look like orbs in front of her, like these little magic orbs and things like that. So it looks like there's this little white, could be like a dandelion fluff or willow fluff or something like that that's passing in front of her. So on the side, so you can sort of see just a couple of places there where my Sharpie has gone, but it's mostly once it dries and once my VersaFine dries, it will blend in. Okay. So now if you wanted to, we could edge this, put a moon around her and just have that be it. We don't have to add anything else. This is a beautiful, beautiful stamp all on its own. But I do have a few others because I want to frame her out a little bit. And so what I've been looking for is, I have a couple of different trees here, and I've kept out the, so I've kept out the acetates. Okay, this is the bigger one. It's this one. So I've got that one. This one's the sacred tree, and this one is a sacred tree as well. These are, a couple of them are real of the Lavinia ones, and a couple of them are knockoffs. You know, but it's just what I at the time had the funds to do. So I do still like to use my stamps. I don't waste them. I don't throw them away just because they're a knockoff. I still continue to use them. So I'm going to play with the acetates to show you how I'm going to decide which one I want to add in order to frame her and make her look like she's actually amongst the trees. So this is the hazel tree. And so now, if I wanted to, what I could do is I could come up like this, just slightly off, and then another one and another one. I could also bring it in like this, but because this particular branch that she's sitting on is so thick, this one just feels a little too spindly, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to put that one to the side. Now we have two others. Now these are both sacred trees. This one's a small one, and this one's the bigger one. This one is actually the sacred tree, the Lavinia actual stamp. This one is an off-brand. Now, if I wanted, so what I could do is come up like this. So this, the knobbiness of this particular tree lends itself really well to how the branch looks in this particular tree. So I could actually stamp one here and then come in up here and have another one. And could do one like that. I think what I want to do, and I've done this before, which I really like, is I think I'm going to use this little one and I'm actually going to use it as another branch of a tree so that it looks like she's still in the trees, if you know what I mean. Okay. And in order to shift the perspective, I'll be stamping this in both black and navy. Well, not navy, twilight, which is Versifying Claire's navy color. This way, then it gives us a different perspective. It looks like when you change up the colors or you use first or second generation stamping, it gives you a different perspective. So it looks like one tree, the darker tree is in the front, and the lighter tree will be in the back or in the distance, for example. So I'm going to start with the black, or the nocturne, sorry. I'm going to ink up the stamp. That to the side there. Okay, so and again, I'm going to look, because again, I'm not using my stamp platform, so I want to check and make sure you can see where's the shine, how well have I inked up my stamp. And this one, I want to come in, and I don't want to get too much on her feet. I want her to be kind of on her own here. So I want to, you know what, I'm actually going to make that one a navy. So I'm going to put, because I want this branch to come out. There we go. So I'm just going to hold it there for a minute, giving it time for it to transfer from my stamp onto the paper. And we're going to lift. Okay. And I don't mind, because that's actually part of the stamp. Okay, so it's not solid like that one. It's a little, it's got little knobs and things like that. And I like that on here, because I can come back in and color that in and add some shades to it if I need to, or if I want to. Okay, so this tree here is going to be a little bit more involved. It's going to be a little bigger on this side. Now I'm going to clean the black off, the nocturne, and I'm going to go to twilight. And again, I'm changing the shade that I'm going to use, because I want to create depth. I want one tree to look like it's further forward, one tree to look like it's in the distance, okay? And so this one, I'm going to use the navy, the nocturne, like this. It's time to re-ink that particular part of it. Okay. So that pretty much has us finished with our stamping. So I'm just going to clean this off before I go and put it down and put my elbow in it. All right. Let's move these guys out of my way here. There we go. Okay, so if you'll see in this particular one that I did, so I've got two different colors of green plus brown on the bright. So the fairy is stamped in black in the nocturne. Okay, and then I've got two different greens. So that shows, so this darker tree looks like it's, even though this one is bigger, it looks like it's further away because it's a lighter shade. And then the darker one will be closer to you. This is how you can add depth and dimension. Brown just helps this stand out in a, because it's a different color. So now, because this is pigment inks, I want to make sure that I blot it before I start doing anything else. I'm gonna take my paper here and just clean it off, just to make sure that everything is sitting on the paper, so that when I start to do work around it, I'm not going to be pulling anything off. Now I've got a couple of circle masks here. These ones are like a plastic, well, I mean, they're all plastic. This is a plastic acetate. That's actually a really nice size in white. But I also, if you don't have those, all I did was take my circle punches, or I have the Creative Memories, the set, and I just made a variety of sizes just out of plain acetate. And then I marked X's on them because these get really hard to see when they're on your projects and you've lost them. So this, I'm just deciding which moon, which size of moon I would like to have. So we've got this one here, or one slightly bigger, just a little bit. Let's see, I've got this really, really, really big one here. That feels like that's a little too big. I don't want to highlight her that much. She is my focal image, so I am going to take this one to the side. I'm going to use this one here. So you can just see here where the black X is. Now, in order to create our moon, or that highlight halo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pigment sponge, and I'm going to use, let me see here, I'm going to use my, yeah, I think I'm going to use Warm Breeze, because that's going to be about the same color that's around it. You can use any color. You can use purple. I could use the Twilight because I've already kind of got it there, but I like this particular color, so I'm going to highlight that. So this is, and for these ones, so these are the sponges that I was telling you about. These are just the just plain old makeup sponges that I get from Dollar Tree. Easy peasy. So I'm gonna dab in, ink up my sponge. I'm gonna test out how much is on there. So there's quite a bit of ink on there. So I'm gonna take some on. Now I'm gonna use my fingers. I'm gonna hold this on, and I'm gonna start on my acetate like this, and I'm just gonna flick outwards. And I want to go around in the circle. Oops. And I'm just going to continue to flick outwards. And when you're doing this, you want to start off with very little ink, because you can always, again, this is a place where you can always add more. If it's not dark enough for you, you can always add more. Once it's on there, though, you can't take it away. So just use your fingers. And while that's in place, because mine's see-through, I can actually, I would be able to see to put it back in place, but you can keep your finger there, you can lift it up, maybe, there we go, and see how happy you are with it. There we go. So just using a tiny little bit of ink, I've been able to add that highlight and make it look like she's sitting with the moon. Even if I'd had all blue ink behind it, just by adding that particular color or whatever highlight. See, like I don't have a yellow or a lighter color in this area. I made it look lighter by just using my acetate and flicking color around it. Okay, so it makes that particular area come forward or be highlighted. Okay? So I can now take my sponge and I can just soften that edge there a little bit if I want to. Go. Okay, so that is the Warm Breeze. So that's given us that highlight. Now, while I have my sponge out, so, oh, and I forgot to tell you guys, this is for a card that is going to be 5 inches by 6.5. So I have made my card front 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. Okay, just so that I can have a nice white frame around it. But what I want to do now is I want to edge my card. I want to continue to bring the focus inwards. So in order to do that, I am going to use, I'm actually going to start first with Medieval Blue. Okay. I think. Let's see here. Yep, that's the one I want to use. Okay, so I'm inking up. And this one you don't need to take off. You can test how much is on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sponge and I'm just going to go around the edges, just like this. I want to create some shadows. Bring some focal into the center of my card. And on the corners, and of course where I've left more sky area here, I want to make sure that I am, I want to bring that down, I want to bring that in. I'm going to turn it. It's a good idea to do this on a work surface. You don't want to use your desk. Have like a craft mat, something that's easy and slick that your sponge will blend and will glide across. This is old paper. When you buy a 12 by 12 scrapbook, the pre-made kind, from Michael's or whatever your big box store or something, they have those paper inserts in each sleeve. I pull those out because I don't, otherwise my scrapbooks would be way thicker than they already are, which my scrapbooks tend to be quite thick. But I pull them out and they make excellent stamp pads. They make excellent discardable sheets to be stamping on, to be practicing. I can tear this up and use it for a mask. And if I wanted to have some coloring, or I only wanted to, let's say I had a tree and I didn't want it to be all the way to the ground here, like I could block that and mask it off at the bottom or something like that. It's a great tool, and because I have them and they're basically waste, I used to throw them away, but now I use them and save them for this. The other thing that you can use is just copy paper. You can use lined paper, just school binder paper type of thing. Okay. So you can see this is where my branch has a little bit of right in here is where I've got, that's where that branch didn't stamp all the way down because it's hollow, or it's got details there. So I'm going to add some color later, but first I want to make sure, rather than spending a ton of time trying to blend that in and getting in a lot of color, let's see how much I'm actually going to need, because I'm highlighting, or I'm edging and the sides of my paper here. So how much am I actually going to have to color in there? Don't know. So let's do this part first before I go and get too carried away. All right. Okay, so you can see again now what's happening is that is just continuing to draw our eye more and more and more into the center, because she is our focal image. That's what we want. Okay, so everything that's around it is to just help build the scene. It's not important. It's what creates so that we can look at her. So I'm also going to take a little bit of my twilight, which is the darkest color. Okay, you see here, it's pretty dark. And I'm going to bring that onto the four corners. I don't need it for the other areas because I've actually managed to get a really nice color blend on here. But I want to keep bringing this in. I want this to be a little darker. And there's a lot of space on these corners. And here, a little darker. Okay, that makes me very happy. Now, I could, again, we're at a point here where if you look at that, that's just stunning. I could just leave it just like that. But I want to pull out some of her details. Now, the way to do that is to use a white jelly roll. So I'm just going to test it here. Now, when you're doing this, we're going to outline her a little bit, not everything, but a little bit, because the light, where is your light source? So she's in shadow, she's a silhouette. So that means then that when I'm looking at her, everything is in black, but there's going to be light that is coming through her or by her. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white jelly roll here. Just like that. And sometimes I dab it off. Sometimes, not always. I'm going to highlight her hair because she'll have some light coming off of her hair there. Go back off of the wing. There will definitely be light coming off of the wing. Normally this jelly roll is pretty good, but it seems to be, there we go, now it's rolling a little bit. the edge here. Yep, that won't work. Okay, let's move on to jelly roll number 2. I've had it tipped upside down for too long. Let's try this. Ah, yeah, there we go. So, and I actually like these jelly rolls because I don't want a ton of white on here. I like her to be, you know, we want to keep the silhouette. We want to keep the shadows and, you know, that darkness and stuff like that. We don't need to highlight everything, but we do want some highlighted because this is where, you know, the light is going to touch her. This is how you start to create depth, make her look like she's got a body that is here rather than just a 2D image. Let's catch her knee and a little bit of her dress here. And I'm just doing the tops down to her toe. So we would have a little bit of light that would get here. This is a very subtle detail, but it makes such a big difference. Turn this a little bit so that I can get, because anything, because we put on the black, so anything in the black is going to come to the front, come forward. Anything in white is going to, because it's a lighter color, it's going to go back. Okay. These are just interesting color principles when you're dealing in 2D versus, and how the eye works and how the eye sees things. That's why when we're doing bling or things like that, the eye is much more comforted by things in odd numbers, like 1, 3, 5, 7. If everything is too even, our eye, we actually find it a little difficult to look at. So these are some little knots or whatever you would like to call them on the tree. So I'm going to highlight those a little bit because those would also be in this light source. A little bit off of the tree here. Okay. Now, from afar, you can't necessarily see that, but when you get it close, she starts to come alive a little, which is what we want. Okay. So now the next one that I'm going to use is I want to highlight her wings. Now, because we used a water-based ink for our background, you can use things like a wink of Stella, but you have to be very careful because you are going to lift your ink in the background. So you want to watch that. I'm going to use my jelly roll. This is the Sakura. This is the clear Stardust one. I think that's what it's called. And I'm going to add some shine to her wings. So you're still going to be able to see the color through because, of course, we want to, what I like about this is it keeps the wings nice and transparent. So you still see the color, but it makes them look more like a, I don't know, gossamer or whatever you want to call that. But they're still they're transparent. So the wings are there. They look solid now, like an actual butterfly or like a dragonfly wing. Catches the light, because of course it would if it was, they almost look plastic, right? Like if you think about a dragonfly's wing, they look like cellophane or something like that. So this would still catch the light, but it still shows all of these beautiful, the colors from behind. So you can see beautiful shine there. Yay. Okay. Now, the other thing that I want to do is I'm going to add some sparkle because, of course, how can you have the land of the fairies without having some sparkle? And I want to highlight, so I'm going to highlight the moon. Now, sometimes I will do that with just the Sakura pen, the translucent one like this, or my Wink of Stella, something like that. But this is a quickie glue pen, so it will dry. It's very fine, and it will dry tacky. So I'm just going to test it out, make sure it's working. I'm going to start at my tree stump here, and I'm just going to follow the line of the moon. And I'm going to go over, so her wings, because the moon area would be further back, right? So her wings are going to be in front. So I want to make sure that I'm not going to have glue or have the, so that's going to be a broken line basically of the moon. I want to make sure that my glitter is not going to block that the wings would block that viewpoint of that glitter. Same thing with the tree branches. The tree branches are obviously much closer to us as the viewer of this particular scene than the moon, unless you live on a different planet or something, which, you know, I don't know, maybe. And her legs, again, would also be closer to us than the moon. So I want to make sure that that is, again, a broken line there. This is why we do this after the stamping, because these areas, in order to make it look more lifelike or realistic, that's what we need to do. Okay, so we've got that. That's ready to go. So I've got a few Lavinia. These are eco glitters, so they break down. So because a lot of people are really concerned about using glitter, and in each of the Lavinia pots of glitter, they have 3 or 4 different grades of glitter. They have a microfine all the way up to a chunky. So it sticks to many different things and you get this really cool look. And based on the colors, I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use. My favorite is the holographic one here. It is my favorite, but it's pretty bright for today. I think I'm going to use this one, which is the vintage shimmer. So I'm going to use that. And I'm also actually, well, I've still got this out. I'm going to add, I want to add some bigger chunks here because I want this to still look like the nighttime sky. So I want a few stars out. Oh, that's gonna put them up there. And I'm adding just little ones around the edge here because there's no leaves on these trees right now. So we would still be able to, if we were on the ground and looking up at her, we would still be able to see the stars in the sky beyond her, right? That's how you have to think about things like this. Well, you don't have to, but okay. So I like to give my pot of glitter a little bit of a shake here. And you can just see, like, look at how pretty. Okay. Turn it away. Oh, fudge. Saw my last video where I was using the glitter. Somebody watched me. I think it wasn't glitter. I think it was I was doing bling, and I was putting it in a container just to kind of contain it. And I was like, "Oh, these things are brilliant. This is why you need this thing." And as I was saying that, I ended up dumping the whole container. So this is yeah, it's always fun to play with glitter for that reason. Just never know where it's gonna go. I have a glitter vacuum, but I'll use that after I finish the taping, just because it gets a little loud. So I'm just going to catch some of the leftover glitter here from the sides because I yeah, did not mean to dump that whole thing like that, but these are the hazards of using glitter. All right, go. Okay, put the lid on before I sneeze and get the glitter over them. Okay, now because this is, I use VersaFine Clair, which again, as a pigment ink. So you can see the areas where it has held on, right? It's because we use pigment ink here to outline our, and to edge our card. That will come off. If I give it a good couple of things like that, I can also brush that off very easily with my finger if I want to. You get a little bit of glitter on the fairy too. Some of that will come off if I need it to come off. I kind of like the effect, so I very rarely brush it off. mostly just because I do like glitter. But if I take that off just like that, so I'm gonna have some glitter on my fingers, but now you can see where the stars are. There you go. And that is our background created. And so we've got these cool little white spots still that look like fairy orbs that are going in front of her. If you don't like that look, you could certainly just dab that in with a not brushy, Sharpie, and have that be completed there and just look really nice and solid. But that is our card front for today. I hope you really enjoyed this. Join me next time. I'll be using a created background, but adding more depth, bringing in more depth and dimension to our stamps. I hope you give me a like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, by all means, do leave it in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer anything that I can. Yeah, make sure you've turned on the notifications so that you're notified the next time that I have a video go live. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.